Hey, morning. It's Kevin Wright here, and it's 8:30 on a Monday morning, and that means I'm here for my weekly live Q&A. On what? Well, on property finance. That's what, because that's what I've spent the last 20 odd years doing, brokering property finance. Everything from a small buy-to-let mortgage up to multi-million pound development loans. So that's what I've been doing, and I'm happy to share my knowledge with anyone that wants to learn a bit more about property finance, or that has got a problem question, something they don't quite understand how property finance works. I just jump on here for approximately 30 minutes every Monday morning. If it gets, sometimes it's a bit longer, if I get more questions, and I think it's only fair for me to stay longer. If someone is interested enough to ask a question, then I'll stay and answer it. And so it sometimes ends up closer to an hour. So we'll see. Just getting a little message that there's an issue on LinkedIn. Because I come through on LinkedIn as well as now. Where else we go? Oh, YouTube. Come out on YouTube, and also come out on various places in Facebook. A couple of groups, a couple of my pages. People got multiple ways to hook into this. I've been doing it probably about 18 months now, since the pretty much the first Monday of lockdown 1. I thought, let's go and do that, and people like it, so I carry on doing it. And you can actually see all of these on my YouTube channel. They're one of the categories on the YouTube channel is all of these. So let's, if you're not coming through YouTube and you want to find out about and see where more of these are, let's put that in there and show you. So let's just pop that in the chat box while I wait for some questions. Got a couple of good mornings there. Good morning. Yes. Great to see you here. There we are. If you haven't found my YouTube channel yet, there it is. It's in the links. So you've got a question, pop it in the chat box, and I'll be very happy to answer it before I go this morning. More people saying good morning, good morning. We try and do some meaty content, but it's totally dependent on the questions you ask. So I don't sort of volunteer content as much, if you like. I just respond to the questions that people ask. So, got a question? Stick it in the chat box and let's get talking about it. So, here with my cup of tea, because I like to have a cup of tea to sit on with me to ease my journey. Okay, so what we got coming up this week? Well, Wednesday I'll be down in London, Heathrow to be precise, the Marriott Hotel to be even more precise, where actually someone that I know was there over the weekend, I think, and they did a selfie with Alan Shearer, who happened to be in that hotel. So if you're watching this, Joanna, yeah, that was good to see. So I'll be down in the Marriott Heathrow this Wednesday for the last BRR Refinance Summit. Got two fantastic speakers, apart from me, which is Tariq Mubarak. So very competent and capable solicitor, is going to tell you why great property deals need great legal contracts. And J. Anthony Howard, author of Before the Hammer Falls, or co-author of that, with Piotr Ruzinek, is going to be talking about how to make money at auctions. So I'll be down there, and that's me done then. I'm not doing any more buy, refurb, refinance summits until next spring. Start them again next spring with some more great speakers, as well as me telling you how to get successful using buy, refurb, refinance. So, questions. Let's have some questions. I'm going to start off using some of those questions. Oh, by the way, if you're thinking that buy, refurb, refinance summit sounds quite interesting, I'd like to come along then. Let me just pop a link in there because we've got a few places still there. Get me spelling. There we are. Okay. So let's start answering some questions. That's why we're here. Now, if you're familiar here and you come along most weeks, you'll know that I pop them up on the screen so that you can actually read it as well as me reading it out. And I think that helps people to understand what I'm saying. You might miss a couple of words or so, but if you can read it on screen, so much the better. Okay, so property with Nemi. Hello, Nemi. Thanks for your question. How easy would it be to get a 75% loan to value mortgage on a recent commercial conversion that comprises of 4 flats and a small shop? There's one defining factor, Nemi, and that is, are the 4 flats and the shop rented out? And if they are, pretty easy to get a commercial mortgage. If they're not, you won't get a commercial mortgage, because commercial mortgage lenders, and this is one of the many differences between commercial mortgages and residential buy-to-let mortgages, lenders on the commercial side only lend on tenanted properties. If you haven't got tenants, you can't get a mortgage. It's unmortgageable until you do. Now, of course, with buy-to-let lenders, you can very easily get a mortgage with a vacant buy-to-let property. They'll let you tenant it after you get the mortgage. So there are many different differences between those two types of mortgage, but that's one of the biggest ones. So first question is, have you rented it all out? If you haven't rented it all out, your mortgage, but you rented part of it out, shall we say, your mortgage is going to be limited to the amount of rent. So if it's not fully rented, your chances of getting a 75% mortgage are significantly reduced because your rent is not big enough to cover a 75% mortgage payment. And if you own them all it's all on one title. Commercial lenders love that. It's really simple. You own the whole building. You own the freehold ground that the building's on. Easy to get a mortgage. So yeah, whether it's 75%, well, that's going to be down to how much the rental income is. But again, because there has to be the correct coverage, and it's quite a complex process for commercial mortgage lenders to work out if it is enough. And again, it's more another difference. It's more complex. It's not just 125% of the rent. There's a whole lot of other stuff in there because you've got a commercial lease in there. The flats will have ASTs above them, but the commercial lease, and that adds, more complexity. Now, if you would like more help on that, Nemi, we'd love to broker that for you. Love to broker it. I'm going to deal with the last bit of your question. I'm leaving that about splitting titles. So we'd love to help you, and you can contact us. You're coming through YouTube, so go back to the homepage of my YouTube channel, look at the tabs along the top, click on About, and you'll see my contact details there. Happy to do that. Alternatively, let me give you an alternative. You can come through and message me on my Facebook page, Kevin Wright, Property Finance Expert. Just going to put that in here. So whichever way works for you, we'd be very happy to broker that commercial mortgage for you, Nemi. Now, moving on to the last or the second part of your question, do you think it's best to split the titles? No. In a word, I don't think it's best to split the titles. I think you're making it far more complicated, and I'm going to explain why. Now, I know splitting titles is something that some trainers teach, but they teach it from a one-eyed perspective, and here's why that is. So why would you split the titles? The only reason I can see is that you'd want to increase the value to pull more cash out. Now, that's a perfectly laudable aim. I've been teaching people to pull their cash out for the last 10 years on my Recycle Your Cash training and Ninja Investor program training courses. So, I'm not unaware of the need or the desire to pull your cash out. But saying that splitting titles is a great way to pull your cash out ignores the fact that you significantly complicate the remortgage process when you do that. Let me explain. So you're going to put the shop on a title, and you're going to create 4 leases for each of the flat. Now, that's 5 lots of legal work that you've got to do. Now, a solicitor is going to charge you at least a few £100 to do that. It could be as much as, getting on for £1,000 per lease. So you've got, I don't know what, £3,000 to £5,000 of cost that you wouldn't otherwise have. Now, so you've got to add more value, and you probably would add more value. But now you get to problems. Now, buy-to-let lenders, as a rule, don't like flats above commercial. They like a flat to be in a residential residential block, not sitting above a shop or a row of shops. Why is that? Well, and if you've watched any of my stuff, you've almost certainly heard me talk about this. In fact, on my most recent tip about property finance, I talked about how HMOs are valued, and I discussed this very subject. On every mortgage that's underwritten, commercial or residential, the underwriter looks at what is their escape route. So if you as the borrower stop paying your mortgage, how easy are they going to get their money back? And the way they get their money back is they repossess you as a problem borrower because you consistently didn't pay your mortgage payments and you allowed arrears to build up. And then they will stick it on the open market with vacant possession. Now, so then that is always that they're, they might cut you some slack before they do that. They're not going to just jump straight into trying to repossess you. But if you become a persistent problem borrower, they may well decide that the last resort is to repossess you. And when they do that, they always want to be able to put the property on the market with vacant possession. So if there's any tenants in there, they'll get rid of them. More difficult with the shop, granted. But certainly the flats, and we're talking mostly about the flats, not the shop here, then they'll serve notice on the tenants under the rules of the AST contract that the tenants have got, get them out within 2 months, on it goes with vacant possession. Now, here's the point. Mortgage lenders or buy-to-let mortgage lenders generally think they'll have more trouble selling a property above a commercial row of shops than they would if it was in a residential block. Now, some of them decide that the best way to solve that problem is just not to lend on it in the first place. If you don't lend on a flat above commercial, you're never going to have a problem selling it. So now that's not every buy-to-let lender, but just the fact as soon as you split the titles, you've reduced your mortgage options because you've got rid of a chunk and a significant chunk of your choice of buy-to-let lenders. Now, the ones that will consider lending are now going to be very interested in the commercial activity that's going on, not only directly below, but adjacent, at least a couple of doors either side. And if you're in one of these, not high streets, but these little, row of shops in an estate or something, and they're on both sides of the road, which they are in some of the older ones, not necessarily the more modern estates, but sort of, suburban residential areas, you've got shops on both sides. And if it's just a single road width, then they're going to be interested in the shops opposite as well. Now, why would they want to do that? Because the commercial activity could affect the marketability of that flat or one of those 4 flats. Now, what they're looking for is anything that depresses demand that's already depressed just because it's above shops. So what are the sort of things that they look at? So antisocial opening hours. So open beyond 5:30 in the evening, because if you've got shops open, you've got footfall, you've got noise, which is antisocial to people living above. So people would be less likely to live above a shop if there's a lot of noise, and and if the shops are open, late into the evening, like these 7-Eleven type shops. So that's one thing. What they sell now, if they sell alcohol, whether it's consumed on the premises or off the premises, like an off license, they know that when people drink alcohol, they get rowdier, noisier. So again, people shouting woo and all that late in the night, people aren't going to want to live in that, or they're less likely to. Now, if there's any hot food being cooked, cooking smells permeate upwards, not so much on the other side of the road, but certainly on the same side of the road. So the people in the flat, if they have their windows open, they're going to smell whatever's being cooked in the shops below. That depresses it as well. And also you've got any hazardous chemicals that are stored in the shops below, which could, be combustible. So there's a whole lot of reasons why they wouldn't lend. Now, any of those are around, then even the buy-to-let lenders that would have otherwise lent say, no, we're not interested. So if you've got anything like a bar that serves food, you've ticked 3 of those 4 boxes. It's open late into the evening, it serves alcohol, and they cook food on the premises. So you're going to find that not impossible, but very, very difficult to get a mortgage on it. Now, what does that mean? Well, when a mortgage, or when anyone does something that most of its competitors won't do, they know they can charge more money. So the mortgage rates are going to be higher. But that's not the only issue. There are other issues as well, because at the moment, I don't know whether you've bought it in your personal name or in a limited company name, but it doesn't matter. You can't be both leaseholder and freeholder. So you've got to create the leases for the 4 flats that you're going to rent out in a different name. And this is not just creating the tenancy. The ownership of the leasehold flat has got to be in a different name to the ownership of the freehold of the building. So now you've got to create a separate entity from that. Now, it again gets more complicated, because buy-to-let lenders in many cases have got what they call an overexposure rule, which means that they won't lend on typically more than 25% of flats in a block or in a building. So with 4 flats, you've got to find 4 separate buy-to-let lenders that are going to lend on a flat above a commercial shop. And I've already said that your choice of lenders is limited. Now, then there's one more complication. If all four flats and those 4 different lenders understand or uncover, as they most likely will, that it's the same person that owns the whole thing, then at least one of them is probably going to say, we don't want to lend. So you might struggle to get four mortgages on each flat from 4 different lenders if the flats are all owned in your personal name, the lease of the flats is in your personal name, or the same limited company. So now you're going to have to get different people involved in owning those flats. And who do you trust enough to say, hey, stick your name on the ownership of this flat for me? Now, if you're getting the feeling that just to add a bit more value and get a bit more cash out, this is a hell of a lot of hassle, then you'd be right. So when you said your first question was, do I think it's best to split the titles? No, I don't. It's a pain in the neck. So much better, much simpler, better to stick with a commercial lender, keep it all on one title, and the commercial lender doesn't matter what's going on in the shop and the relationship with the flats above, because they're insuring that, or they're lending, not insuring, they're lending on the whole building. So that was quite a long answer to a question, wasn't it? But there's a lot of intricate parts in there. So now let's see. But thanks very much for your question, and we'd be very happy to broker that. So Nemi, please do get in touch. Okay, so scrolling down very carefully. Now, Facebook user. So what this means is it's a Facebook security feature. If you're a regular on this Q&A, you'll know what that means, because I explain it most weeks. For people that don't know, it means that when you post and you're through one of the Facebook pages or groups that you're watching this through, Facebook asks you, do you want to reveal your name as a security aspect? And if you don't tick that box and say, yes, you do, it just comes up as Facebook user. And then I drill down and find out who it is later today. So how much percentage on each flip? Okay, so what I think you're asking there is, if you're going to buy and sell a property, how much profit do you need to make? Well, that's really no one can tell you how much that is. I mean, you'll decide for yourself. Once you work the numbers out, you'll look at the profit you're destined to make, and you'll say, either that'd be good if I can get that, or I wouldn't. I'm not going to do all the work just to earn that out of it. So it's going to be really determined by the profit margin when you work your numbers out, which you should be doing actually to make your offers. You should never make an offer. Now, here's the wrong way to make an offer, is to make it based on the asking price. You know, so for example, and I see this taught, and I can't see the logic of it for the life of me. You know, offer 10% below the asking price, or 15, or 20. Well, why? You know, what does the percentage below the asking price make? Maybe the asking price is overinflated. They often are. So what you need to be doing is, actually, I've got a video. Let me find that video. How to work out how much you should pay for a property. I'm scrolling through my tips. And let me scroll on this because it's worth you. If you haven't worked out these before, let me see if I can find this. Here we are, got it. So here's a quick guide. It's a video I shot on my YouTube channel to say, you know, how you should work out how much you pay for a property. Now, it's an abbreviated version because I do the full version of that. Call it my maximum offer matrix on. Now, is that still going? Yeah. Let me shut that video. We don't want the video playing. On my advanced training, the Ninja Investor program, which I'll be running next weekend. So, yeah. Now, you could say, well, I want to make 20%. So 20% of the sale price. So if you're selling it for 200, I want to be making 40,000. That's a typical percentage to make, 20% of the sale price. It's what developers work on. So, you know, if it's if someone's converting a block of flats, for example. So Nemi, if Nemi would converted her whatever it was before into a shop and 4 flats, and she was going to sell them on, not refinance them, then she'd want to sell. She'd want to make 20% of the GDV, gross development value. So that would be common. Now, you know, on a 200,000 property, maybe 40%, so 40,000, 20% would be a bit strong. So if you think you can make, you'll be happy with less than that. Well, how much less? It's for you to decide. So there is no rule on that. Now, everyone would work out a number and say, I'm not doing it just to earn that. For example, you know, you wouldn't, you know, do a buy a refurb and sell of a 200,000 property to make just 10 grand. That seems very little reward for what's probably quite a bit of work. And the more work you've had to put in to get it up to 200,000, the more you'd want to earn out of it. So, you know, there's no defined answer. But thanks for your question. So got a few more questions coming in there. And so we're just coming up to the 9 o'clock. I say I'm going to be here for half an hour. I usually run over because, you know, I pay the person the respect who asked the question of me answering it for them. Okay, so looking at the best ways to purchase multiple properties in auction. Multiple lots, same seller. Would I have to do multiple financing or organise single financing? Well, clearly you're not going to do it as cash, otherwise you wouldn't be asking the question. You're highly unlikely to be able to get a mortgage lender to work in an auction timeframe. It was a struggle pre-COVID, and because mortgage lenders' processing times have got longer post-COVID for a variety of reasons, then you're gonna struggle, and and even if you do get it, it's going to be incredibly stressful because you won't actually know pretty much until the last minute whether you are going to get it, and you've got a pretty good chance of losing your deposit for not completing in what is the normal 28-day time frame. So really, mortgages are not advisable to use. Now, as brokers, we won't take on that business. We won't take on brokering a mortgage for an auction purchase, simply because we don't want the stress of it. We don't want you to have the stress of it. So it's either cash or bridging, and we'll very happily broker bridging. We do that regularly, broker bridging finance. So would you do that? Yes. Well, if you've bought multiple properties and it's from the same seller, we can just arrange a bridging loan, one bridging loan from one bridging lender to cover them all. That wouldn't be an issue. Okay. So another Facebook user, please give us top tips for raising finance for other projects from your viewpoint on finance. Well, I'll do exactly that. Let me show you where. I've got a YouTube channel, and there's my top tips run to, let me see, how many are there now? probably about 80 top tips, 81 actually, 81 top tips. So if you want top tips on raising finance and other issues, go to my YouTube channel and go to my top tips thing. There we are. There's 81 top tips on how to raise that. And if you like it and you haven't been there before, subscribe, because I bring a new one out every week. So thanks for your question. Have we got any more? Yeah, we've got a few more there. So I just want to make sure I don't miss any. There we go, got that right. Nemi says, okay, thanks. Yeah, great. I look forward to helping you, Nemi. So please do get in touch. Will, there's a familiar face. Hello, Will. Good to see you back again. Are there salary requirements for a BTL mortgage? Yes, there are. And they're different with different lenders. Let's see what the rest of your question is before I elaborate on that. We have a resi mortgage on my husband's salary. Our lender doesn't do additional lending to buy a second property. I've no income myself. Okay, not quite sure on the relationship between those two things. So, are there salary requirements for a buy-to-let mortgage? Yes. For quite a large number of buy-to-let lenders, it's $25,000 per year. Sometimes that has to be one person in a joint application earns 25. Other lenders, it's 25 between the two of you. Now, when you go, if you don't earn 25,000, then you won't struggle to get a mortgage, but again, you'll have a smaller choice of lenders. Some have got 20. There are some with more than 25 actually, but some have 20. Some say we haven't got a minimum, but we're going to assess each case as it comes. But here's the point: the lower your personal income, the less chance you've got of getting a buy-to-let mortgage. So why would lenders set this threshold of 25,000? So here's the reason. At some point on your buy-to-let property, your tenant will leave. You know, if you've got a 25-year mortgage, it's highly likely the tenant is not going to stay that long. So when they leave, you've got to find a new tenant. And for however long it takes you to find a new tenant, you'll have no rental income coming in that property. So, but you still have to pay your mortgage. So if you still have to pay the mortgage, then there's no rental income to pay it. It's got to come out of your personal income. Now, buy-to-let lenders say that 25,000 gives them a degree of comfort that you could probably stump up a mortgage payment or two or possibly three if it takes you more than a couple of weeks to find a replacement tenant. So that's why. So yes, there is a salary requirement. It's 25%, sorry, 25%, 25,000 with a lot of lenders. But if you can't show 25,000, then you can still get a mortgage, but with a restricted number of lenders. You have a resi mortgage on your husband's salary. Our lender doesn't do additional lending to buy a second property. Well, that's a different question. You know, if you want to buy, so you want a further advance to give you a deposit to make a buy-to-let mortgage. Then that's not, you know, that's a completely different question. And whether you earn 25,000 a year or not is not going to solve that issue. If you want to additional lending, you're going to have to change main residence lenders. So there we are. But good. Thanks for your question. Scroll down. I've got another long question here, so I'm going to disappear for a bit now because this question's coming up, but I'm still here. And hey, you don't want to see my face anyway, do you? You want the content, not what I look like. So, hope all is well. It is. Thank you. Got a mortgage offer on a property looking to purchase. Subsequently, the building survey has suggested there may be structural issues that need to be investigated further. How much digging, literally and metaphorically, should we do, and how does this affect the mortgage offer that's already in place? So, the lender is almost certainly then going to ask you to pay for a structural survey. So you get a structural engineer to do a full structural survey on that. Now they are going to have to do some point excavations to understand what's going on. So they're going to make some. They're going to have to drill down underneath the property to find out. So they'll take specimen borehole type things. Probably a structural survey going to cost you £500 to £1,000, probably somewhere in that, maybe even a bit more, depending where you are in the country. Does this affect the mortgage offers? Absolutely, it does, because the mortgage just because you've got a mortgage offer doesn't mean that it can't be withdrawn. So the mortgage lender may now want to see the result of that structural survey, and if they feel that the property is needs some defects rectified, they could withdraw the offer. And certainly it would affect the price that you have agreed to pay for the property, because you didn't factor in, I guess, structural rectification work and costs into the offer you made on the property. So if you need any help on that, get in touch. Have we got any more questions? Yeah, here's one. Another big question. Okay, so when it comes to bridging a property flip, do the lenders look at comparisons within a specific range as their criteria, as we are about to massively outvalue part sales in the street with our current project? Past sales at 420k, which was valued 6 months ago at 90. However, our property has a starting price of 650 due to the standard of finish. How would we deal like something if we were to bridge our next? Okay. Standard of finish doesn't indicate the price it's going to get valued at. So here's the point, and this is how lenders look at it. So someone that wants to pay 650 for a property, would they want to live in that street where other properties are up to 200,000 cheaper? And the probability is no, they wouldn't. Someone with 650 to spend, regardless of the state of the finish of the property, would probably choose a nicer street. So I don't know whether you've done this before, but to me that looks a really risky strategy. So I mean, completely different numbers, but I was involved in a case a few years ago, and this was a little village up in the Welsh Valleys, and they bought the property really, really cheap, £20,000 in actual fact, and they really went up to town and overboard, you could say, on the standard of finish. They spent £48,000 on that. So they were in for £68,000. Then they got it valued this was a refinance rather than a flip, and it got valued at 40,000. Why? Because no one had ever spent more than 40,000 on a property in that street, in that village. So standard of finish does not dictate what someone's going to pay for a property. So if you're looking to go that far above, maybe you're experienced in doing this before, maybe you've done it and got away with it, but for me it sounds an inherently risky strategy, that you're asking someone to pay way over the price that street commands just because your house looks nicer than the rest. But does it look 150 or 200,000 nicer? That's a huge ask. You know, common sense would say, if I've got 650,000 to spend, I'm going to pick a nicer part of town and probably have a less stupendous property. Now, if you're into the trophy homes, into the 2 or 3 million type of thing, well, then that that might apply. But if it's a standard street with standard prices, I don't know what part of the country it's in, but and if you're looking at bridging, then they're highly unlikely, I would have said, to go along with your 650 valuation. Yeah. So there we are. So I'll find out. I'll dig down later today and find out actually, who you are that's posting that question. And but happy to help you on that. Have we got any more? Yeah, we got some more things popping in here. Okay, some more good mornings. If anyone's seriously looking at bridging to purchase property, Kevin is your man. I did his course and it's full of information, in-depth, valuable information. I'm going to have to come and say thank you for that and find out who it is, which of the many hundreds of people that have done my course over the last 9 years. There we are, but thanks. I've purchased properties in Portugal via Portuguese banks, and the lending is very restrictive. No interest only mortgages. Can you signpost to me what other type of finance I could use? Can only think of JV. There is no other type of finance. If you want to buy properties in a foreign country, you have to use their banks. UK lenders, almost without exception, are not going to lend on in overseas countries. Why would they? And you're right. Most countries have got a less liberal mortgage system than the UK. In fact, probably the only country in the world that's got a more liberal system is the United States. So, any of these countries, you're going to find it a real struggle to get restrictive lending. So I was dealing with someone a couple of years ago, and they had a flat in Germany. Great, rented it out. Never a problem renting it out, but they'd owned it for several years, more than a decade. And so they went to their bank and other German banks and said, can we have a bigger mortgage to release some equity? And the banks said, but you've already got a mortgage. Yeah, we know, but we want a bigger mortgage. Well, why do you want a bigger mortgage? You don't have a bigger mortgage. You had a mortgage to buy the property. So that's the mortgage. So again, there's a complete lack of willingness to participate with recycling cash out. So if you want more financing options, here's the tip: don't buy properties in Portugal. Stick to the UK. And you can joint venture. But again, it's a question: why would someone want to stick their money in a property in a foreign country? It's inherently riskier. So I think you're going to struggle, is the honest answer to that. Okay, here we are. Another question. Still got a few rolling in. Wow, there we are. So by next year, me and the wife should have about 100K. Brilliant. Well done. How much could we afford to look at purchasing using bridging finance to do up and rent out property? Okay. So what you need to look at is one of my videos about market value bridging, because you could potentially borrow because market value bridging, I'm going to link you to the video. The market value bridging lends on the asking price, not the purchase price. So you could potentially borrow, you could afford to purchase up to £1 million property on that. Not every property, you'd have to be significantly discounted below the asking price. There'd have to be a motivated seller, but potentially anything up to £1 million. Now let's find that video. Pop that in there. Shut the video down. Now, So watch that video. And and hey, when you need some bridging, let us broker it for you, because we know more about bridging than pretty much anyone else. Why is that? Because we brokered hundreds of the things. Seriously, literally hundreds of the things. Right, the property has 17 interested parties. Okay, right, this is the 650 one. Yeah, the property has 17 interested parties. Post-market, area is affluent. We suspect the property will sell within 7 days after a smaller property down the road sold for 675. Okay, well, that contradicts what you just said, because you said it was, you're seriously, oh, okay, so it's in a different street. Okay, but it's related. Okay, well, you might be more lucky then. And if you've done that, but again, you know, the basis still applies. If you're trying to break ceiling prices in any given street, it's a risk escalation because you might not do it. But if your finish is so great, and it sounds like it is, it's in demand, more power to you. Okay. That looks like about it. So I'm going to hop off now. And of course, me just saying those very words on other weeks means that someone else slips another question in there. So I hang around a bit longer to answer that. But in the absence of any question coming up, I'm going to say cheerio. And I'll be back next Monday at 8:30 to do it all again with a new bunch of questions. So have a fantastic week, and I look forward to catching up with you again next week. And if you're watching the replay, by the way, you didn't catch this live, many people don't, just stick a hashtag replay so that I know you've watched it. That will help me. Thank you very much. Okay, so have a great week, guys and girls. See you a week from today. Cheerio.